0742, east of Pokrovsk, Donetsk Oblast. The air tastes like wet ash and battery acid. Fog clings to broken trees. Static crackles in every headset as Ukrainian comms bounce between repeaters and ground relays. Somewhere ahead, an engine coughs the way a chain smoker does before lying about quitting. A Leopard 2A6 noses past a crater lip, hull low, thermal sight humming. Call sign Lynx 2. Commander Spectre leans into the PERI panoramic sight. Gunner Vesna trims the reticle until it floats dead still over a field of cold grass and hot rumors. Loader Brick palms a DM-63 Sabo like a waiter balancing a sword. Driver Koltso keeps 1,500 RPM in the pocket, ready to pounce or pirouette. The gun, a 120mm L55, looks bored and dangerous the way professionals do. Western practice here. Long rod APF SDS, stabilized fire, and obscene accuracy. The Leopard's whole job description, as recent footage out of this front likes to remind people.
742, 50 meters right, an Abrams M1 with Ukrainian patchwork and careful grime. Clambers from a drainage cut. Call sign Bison 3. Commander Bishop thumbs the CITV. Gunner Fable warms the ballistic brain. Loader Ox flexes, grins, and checks the blow-off panels over the turret bustle like a priest checking a door to heaven. Driver Mole loiters with intent. The Abrams breathes low, turbine heat wobbling the world. Crew survivability is the obsession carved into this tank's bones. Ammo stashed behind armored doors. Panels engineered to vent the worst day straight up and out, not through the crew. That difference is the reason Ukrainian videos show crews walking away even while racks burn. Yes, that's a thing. Western tanks vent outward. You can see it in multiple Ukrainian clips where Leopard or Abrams crews evacuate while ammunition cooks off behind them. Net call, gravel-voiced.
Enemy armor probing east of the rail spur. Mixed company. One T-90M observed with BMP escort.
The word Proryv hangs on the net like an uninvited guest. The T-90M isn't a cartoon villain. It's fast, compact, and mean, with modern optics, a carousel full of bad intentions, and reactive tiles jacketed around its cheeks and sides. But it bleeds like steel, and steel bleeds when physics gets the angle. 0743, ISR, arrives not by radio, because radio is for people who enjoy arguing with Russian jammers, but by a hardline click whisper. A recon team has run fiber through a culvert, sending a clean feed of the hedgerows ahead, unbothered by the electromagnetic tantrum miles to the east. Ukrainian units have been leaning into fiber-backed recon feeds to avoid EW. You can spot the mentality in prior fights where they route around jamming instead of arguing with it. Spectre watches the thermal picture bloom. Two BMP-3s are ants with hot bellies, trails of infantry trying to pretend they're shrubbery. And behind them, there, a cooling silhouette with a heart of white. The T-90M idles behind a dirt embankment, turret offset a few degrees like a dog scenting the wind. 744.
Lynx, hull down here. Bison, shift right to the cops. We cross-cover the gap.
Bishop says, voice carrying the kind of calm you only get after surviving all the ways to die the first time. The terrain. A soaked bowl of winter grass, a collapsed hay barn, and a tree line curling like a question mark around a farm lane. Wind pushes smoke from last night's artillery like slow ink. Visibility wobbles between 1,800 and 3,000 meters, depending on how truthy the mist feels. Lynx settles behind a berm, only turrets showing. Bison shoulders into the copse. The Abrams CITV stares through the fog the way a hawk stares through rumors. The Leopard's stabilizer makes the crosshair a fixed star, while the rest of the world shivers. 744. Contact. ABMP peaks. Bad choice.
HMP ready.
Vesna strokes the trigger. The L55 barks like thunder, learning manners. The BMP inhales fire, exhale not included. A spiral of orange and black unbuttons its lid. The troop compartment discovers sky. The second BMP tries courage. Courage finds geometry. Bishop whispers.
Fable, coax the dismounts, then give the tin can a dart.
A flick of 7.62 stitches the ditch. Shapes flatten. Then the Abrams main gun speaks in a deep,
educated voice. A sabot needles through the frontal plate at a bad angle for the BMP's continued relevance. 7:45 counterfire. Mortar drops clap the berm. Shrapnel hisses over Lynx's turret cheeks. Spectre leans on the net. Dry.
They're bracketing our manners. Brick, smoke, left, short.
6 grenades pop into curtains. Colso rocks the whole 60 tons like a boxer's shoulder roll. Pivot steering to keep only the turret in the problem. Drone rear arc. Vesna hears it before the RWR chirps.
Rear, low.
Brick and Ox both snort in unison. Different tanks, same instincts. Coax chatters. The drone jitters, clips a fender skirt, and detonates with the kind of authority designed to impress teenagers and fences. The Leopard shrugs. Skirts are paint and plate, not soul. Seen this movie. FPVs that dig into bustle armor or side skirts can scuff, crack, or annoy. Western tanks often keep rolling, which is exactly why crews live to joke. 7:46. Then the T-90M moves. The Proryv slides forward, hugging the berm, seeking the edge where its turret down angle becomes a gun line. Its soft kill optics blink. Not magic, just confidence. And a helper drone lazily circles above it like a nervous star. Spectre marks range.
2.8. DM63 up.
Brick sings, steel in his voice.
Send.
Crack! The Leopard's sabot leaves arguments and arrives at conclusions, scissoring through a seam below the gun mask. Not a comic book weakness, just the wrong place to be wearing the wrong plates. Heat washes through the T-90M's turret ring. Thermal spikes. Crew scrambles for a new plan that doesn't exist. 7:46. The T-90M ignores mortality like a professional and slews to flank, sprinting toward a drainage cut to turn Lynx's angle into yesterday's math. Bishop sees it first.
Fable, traverse right. Lead him through the ditch.
The Abrams is a cathedral of stabilization. The reticle licks the future.
On. Send.
Wham! M829 digs into the T-90M side just aft of the side era. The relictiles try to stage an intervention. Physics calls it a polite suggestion. The sabot jet plows deep. Overpressure punches. The carousel gets religion. The Russian tank staggers, turret twitching, optics blinking dumbly. And then the battlefield gets rude. A cornet streaks from a hedgerow, bright as a bad idea. Bishop barks.
Hard left, smoke front.
Mole flings 60 tons. The Abrams slithers. The missile threads the smoke on momentum and spite, misses by centimeters, and performs a dramatic critique of a tractor shed.
Javelins awake.
Spectre snaps to the infantry net. A clipped reply.
Stugna has the AT team.
The screen in Lynx's turret blooms with a familiar top attack arc. A second later, the Cornet team discovers what terminal guidance means in several senses. The T-90M still lives. Scarred, angry, blind spot widening. It lurches, tries to nose its gun toward Bison. From the tree line, a Bradley howls into view. A veteran American box with a Slavic streak and a .25 caliber smile, and stitches 25mm across the T-90M's sensor face and sight periscopes. The Russian tank shudders, turret motor hunts, the world turns to static for its gunner. There's precedent. Ukrainian Bradleys have saved defenders by mauling a Russian tank's vulnerable side and sensor suite with 25mm, turning optics into soup and plans into smoke.
Bison, finish.
Fable rides the wobble, lets the stabilized crosshair settle on an angle where armor becomes math again and squeezes. The second dart arrives like a subpoena. The T-90M's turret hitches, then stops being directional. Hatches pop, one crewman half stands, hands making a shape that means we're leaving now. Then this happens. An FPV, thin-voiced, high-strung, hell on a budget, drops out of the fog and slips for an open hatch. It threads past a waving hand, a nightmare politely entering a room. Inside, 2.6 kilograms of shaped judgment goes off where the ammo's temper is shortest. Fire claws up the open mouths of the hatches. Flames punch from the barrel like a dragon sneezing sideways. The interior stops being habitable and starts being documentary. Exact pattern seen in multiple Ukrainian clips. FPV through open hatch, immediate ammunition ignition, with flame jets through turret hatches and even the barrel. The turret does not popcorn into the clouds. Modern rings and bolts hold it down, but the T-90M transforms from combat vehicle into a bonfire of checklists. 3 drones, maybe $1,500 total, just erased a tank that costs north of $3 million before bribes. The math is ugly and true. Yes, that ugly asymmetry, a few FPVs deleting a multi-million-dollar tank, has already shown up here, with cost deltas spelled out in open source breakdowns. Silence, almost. Then the battlefield inhales again. Mortars continue their thankless accounting. A Russian recon drone tries to nose in for a look and gets swatted by coax. The Bradley reverses like it's done this dance 100 times, because it has, and vanishes behind a wrecked silo.
Shift fires.
Spectre orders.
BMP on the lane. 2.2. Moving.
Vesna floats the crosshair ahead of the track squeal and taps the trigger. The sabot arrives from the future. The BMP learns about side angles and finishes learning quickly. Bishop's voice is a tablespoon of dry humor.
ArmorNet. Confirm lane called.
Infantry replies, laughing through adrenaline. Cold as my ex's heart.
Copy. Don't marry lanes.
Bishop says. Somewhere inside the M1's turret, Ox chuckles. Loader humor is 50% steel and 50% gallows. Problem: the recon feed glitches. A wobble, a freeze, a reprise, as Russian jamming surges from the east. The hardline holds, but the team at the culvert reports RF stink thick enough to chew. Spectre doesn't wait for perfect pictures. He reads the ground instead. Drag marks across the ditch, a change in thermal where grass has been pressed, a thin line of hot footprints leading toward a low wall. Angles, not vibes.
Artillery. Grid 47 Delta. Hedge seam. 3 round scatter. Quick.
You don't need eyes when you have math and friends. 30 seconds later, a polite thunder resculpts the hedgerow. The net reports 2 secondary pops. Cornet spares are now former Cornet spares. Counter, counter. A Russian drone swoops. Vesna's coax starts to sing. The drone jinx and, for its trouble, discovers that 7.62 is patient and air is not armor. Bison moves. Mole edges the Abrams along a shallow reverse slope, escorting a platoon of infantry across an ugly strip of no longer neutral ground. The CITV catches a wink of thermal on the second floor of a half-standing house. Fable paints it with heat MP, and the wall is suddenly a street, and the street is suddenly a choice. Lynx hears a sound Spectre's bones recognize. A diesel a kilometer past where the Proryv died. Trying not to cough, but coughing anyway.
New contact. 3.1. Hull down behind the culvert lip.
Not the same tank, that one is a grill now, but a friend. The Russian crew has seen enough YouTube to try and play ridge games with a Western sight. Good plan in general, bad plan today. It crawls, turret down, presenting only a smirk of armor and a lot of confidence. Vesna splits the difference, holds just off the lip, waits for that sliver of turret face to grow from whisper to sentence, and then to shout.
Send.
The L-55 speaks, the lip chips, the dart carves, the turret face goes unfriendly. The Russian tank reverses, the field fills with small men making small, desperate choices. Brick's magazine of irony runs low.
We're cooking the wrong things.
He mutters and slams another rod into the breach. You measure a fight by how the loader's back feels tomorrow. Across the spur, a fuel truck tries to sneak Destiny past the math. It's a terrible disguise. Bishop marks it and passes to guns down the line, because tanks don't waste darts on flammables when friends with tube artillery are shopping for purpose. The thunder answers. The spur blossoms. Routes change, schedules die. Enemy EW pushes again, the air full of synthetic snow. But the kill web is braided, not brittle. The fiber recon feed keeps whispering truth, and a pair of FPVs orbit to mop up dismounts the way guilt mops up decisions. Where the Russian armor hesitated, the Russian infantry now tries to sprint. Someone forgot to tell them that sprinting in lines is a language artillery speaks fluently. Bison's CITV snaps to a heat bloom near a collapsed pigshed. An AT team setting up again in the same lifetime? Ambition is brave, and brave is dead if it ignores angles. Coax, Bishop says, and Fable scribbles a page of punctuation across the doorway. An FPV kisses the roof a heartbeat later to sign the note with a period.
Recap on the net. 2 BMPs down, 2 Russian tanks disabled/destroyed, AT team silenced, a fueler turned into signal flare, infantry suppressed and withdrawing in ragged bundles. Blue forces, armor intact, paint exfoliated, tempers steady. Lynx has used respectable darts. Bison has burned through 3 and a sermon. Then this happens again, but from the other direction. A second Proryv, angered and embarrassed, rips along the hedgerow at a sprint, trying a long hook to the south to roll up Lynx's flank and bounce into the gap where the berm thins. It's good, fast armor work. It would deserve applause in an empty field with no friends, but it's not alone. Above the berm, a tiny whisper of wings. A Ukrainian FPV at low altitude, working in from the blind quarter. The drone operator rides a fiber line slung along the ditch, a ghost cord that doesn't exist to jammers, and steers by physics instead of radio permission. This fiber leash trick, wherever and whenever conditions allow, turns jamming into background noise and lets operators place drones like scalpels. It's not theory, it's doctrine born of 1,000 lessons. The drone dips behind the T-90M's turret bustle. The crew has learned. Hatch is closed. Good habit. The operator has learned too. He threads the seam where turret meets hull, a thin ring of armor with thin patience. The shaped charge kisses, then knifes. Pressure spikes inside, hatches blow open like a curse. A breath of dragon fire lances upward. Again, the specific flame-through hatch/barrel phenomenon. We've seen it in recent strikes. It's not cinematic license, it's recorded physics. The Proryv lurches like a drunk discovering gravity and comes to rest against a birch. Turret motor whines, gun sags. The forest acquires a new steel tree.
Cease pushing.
Spectre orders.
Hold. We've overachieved.
The temptation after a clean string of kills is to chase. That's how heroes die and maps get rewritten in red pencil. Logistics net pops in, rail spur blocked, enemy trying to route around. The earlier fires are now a supply chain argument written in smoke. A battalion's worth of diesel will be late to a party that already went home. Seen the same second order ugliness after rail strikes. Rails bend, wagons cook, and somebody's entire day of logistics stops existing. Damage check. Lynx, skirts frayed, optics pristine, crew hyped, but breathing like grown-ups. Bison, one smoke rack empty, paint scorched on the lower right front, where the cornet tried to be memorable, crew swapping dark jokes at a pace that means their hands are steady. Bishop keys the infantry net.
Window open. Cross now.
In the pause, an infantry sergeant whistles once, low and feral. Men move in 2s and 3s, the way experience teaches. The tank's turrets stalk, cross-covering. Not glamour, not bravado. Just professional murder held in reserve. Overhead, a Russian drone circles, not sure where the battlefield went while it buffered. Cokes coughs. The drone is a memory. 0758 EW reports the Russian jamming blanket collapsing in pulses as generators overheat and crews turn knobs that only make things worse. The field quiets. Smoke keeps speaking in the old language. Bison and Lynx pivot back toward a lateral farm track, engines low. Nobody white-knuckles the grips anymore. They move with the practiced calm of people who will not be memorialized today. In the gap where the Proryvs died, infantry plant little flags only they can see and call it ours for now. The map inchworms. Somewhere behind Russian lines, a supply officer is explaining to a colonel why physics and fire have teamed up to cancel an offensive timetable. Spectre's log, spoken, not written.
2 T-90M destroyed, abandoned. 2 BMP destroyed. 80 nest neutralized. 1 fueler kissed by God. Minimal own damage.
He pauses.
Crew status sarcastic.
Bishop's voice, softer now.
Next time, bring cake for the stabilizer engineers.
Ox laughs.
Next time, bring a forklift for my spine.
Mole, deadpan.
Next time, bring a road.
Over the net, higher headquarters is all cheerful menace. Armor elements, Lynx 2, Bison 3, well executed. Hold for tasking, which is war's way of saying take a breath, then don't. The sun finally decides to participate. Light breaks across scarred fields, ladders down smoke, glints along the top run of tracks.
Everything looks briefly simple from exactly this angle and no other. A last loose end. An abandoned Russian drone tries to land on instinct and ground effect. Vesna flicks a single round that removes its last curiosity. Brick, who counts with his back, leans into the turret wall and exhale laughs. Zoom out. 30 minutes later. ISR slides a mosaic onto the ops map. A platoon of Russian tanks pulling back 2 clicks to reorganize. 1 BMP tugging a wounded cousin. 2 ammo carriers parked and very unsure about their life choices. Radio chatter that translates roughly to "Where's the fuel?" followed by "Find another axis." That's always the second order win, not just burning the target, but burning the schedule. The larger ledger. 1 Western tank pair and friends just changed a morning's plan into an afternoon's problem. They didn't do it by being invincible. There's no such thing. But by stacking small truths into a wall. Better sights, smarter positions, harder lines of communication, and a willingness to let a $700 drone finish what a $10,000 dart started. The cost asymmetry and the finish with FPV rhythm are now a recognizable signature of this war's armored fights. Engines cooling. Bison hums at idle like a distant generator at a village fair. Lynx leaks a thin ribbon of steam from a scuffed skirt. The crews sit inside their steel churches of instrument light and listen to the clinks and ticks of heat arguing itself back into equilibrium. Spectre takes one last look through the PE or I, habit, superstition, respect, and then taps the rim of the sight, back to hold down 3. We let the infantry write their paragraph. We'll proofread if needed. The tanks reverse in lazy symmetry. In their wake, a torn hedgerow, a cooling turret, and a lane where men in muddy boots now move in casual, lethal confidence. The wind has shifted. The fog is mostly gone. The field looks wider than it did an hour ago. That happens after you cut a thread in half. Command tally, quick math. Drone munitions under 10 grand. Sabo expenditure in the low 5 figures. Fuel burned, a few hundred liters. Russian tab, 2 T-90M at a sticker nobody wants to put in writing on a radio. 2 BMPs at whatever the exchange rate is for bad ideas. A fuel truck, an AT team, and a morning that will now be remembered as the time we learned to check the hedges twice. Those crew cam moments where Russian tanks go up under FPV pressure and Western tanks keep their crews safe. Those are the new training videos, whether anyone admits it or not. The last picture on the recon tablet is a single white-hot dot, far to the rear, that isn't a vehicle at all, but a generator trying to keep a jammer alive. Someone writes a grid. Someone else writes a fire mission. The chessboard does what chessboards do when you take queens off and leave pawns in the wrong places. Spectre keys the net, easy as a bartender wiping a glass. Lynx 2 back in cover. Bishop follows. Bison 3 in position. If anyone asks, we were never here. A beat. Infantry sergeant dry. If anyone asks, they can read the smoke. The air is clean enough now to smell turned earth and wet cordite. Somewhere a dog barks twice and decides to live elsewhere. If you're looking for miracles, you won't find any. Just work. 1,000 micro choices that add up to a macro outcome. Western tanks aren't gods, and T-90Ms aren't straw men. Everybody does their best. Physics adjudicates. The side taking notes fastest gets to eat lunch warm. In the battalion log, the entry will be dry. 2 enemy MBTs destroyed by direct and indirect fires. Own forces, no losses. It will not mention the breath Vesna held in her teeth while holding the reticle over a smudge. It will not mention the way Mole lifts the sprocket just high enough to skim broken masonry like it's wet ice. It will not mention Brick's laugh when the drone pinwheeled off the fender, or Ox's 2-word prayer when the Cornet contrail cut the sky. It never does. That's fine. The battle knows. And for the record, Pokrovsk still stands. The Abrams still hums. The Leopard still purrs. The Proryv still burns. Bye for now.